Imagine a superhero even more powerful than Batman, with bat-like powers. At the start of this story, we see a scientist named Dr. Morbius arriving in a helicopter with all his friends. They are landing on a large rock. Dr. Morbius and his team have come to this mountain to research dangerous bats found here, which are quite different from other bats. Dr. Morbius makes a small cut on his hand and shows it to the bats in the cave, and they all start waking up from a deep sleep and approaching him. But what Dr. Morbius wants to do with them will be revealed a little later. We then see a flashback scene where Dr. Morbius is 10 years old. At that age, Morbius was afflicted with a strange disease that was very difficult to cure at the time. This disease existed in the blood and gradually worsened over time. Dr. Morbius could barely walk and had to be shifted to a nearby hospital for treatment. In that hospital, there was another boy named Milo, who had the same disease as Dr. Morbius. Milo couldn't even heal from his bed. Dr. Morbius and Milo became good friends. One day, Milo's oxygen machine suddenly malfunctions, and if Milo isn't treated immediately, he could die. Dr. Morbius examines the machine and solves the problem, saving Milo's life. The doctor at the hospital is very impressed with Morbius and praises him because fixing such complicated machines isn't a task for an ordinary person. Therefore, after seeing Morbius's intelligence, the doctor enrolls him in an intelligence school. The scene then shifts to the present, where Dr. Morbius has become a renowned scientist working on many government missions. Dr. Morbius had decided in his childhood that he would find a cure for his disease no matter what and then cure his friend Milo as well. Dr. Morbius is awarded by the government for his experiments, but he feels he doesn't deserve it and leaves without accepting the award. We then see a lady named Martin working in Dr. Morbius's laboratory. When Martin comes to Morbius, she sees that he has filled a chamber with many bats. These are the same bats we saw at the beginning of the story, and it seems that Dr. Morbius is planning to experiment on them. Martin was telling Dr. Morbius that all these things could possibly be illegal because permission from the government is required to conduct this type of experiment. However, Morbius wanted to cure his illness and his friend Milo's illness by any means necessary. Dr. Morbius tells Martin that inside the bat, there was a type of saliva that absorbed any type of blood into it. Even if cancer blood was present inside it, and now that's why Dr. Morbius wanted to mix his DNA and bat saliva to make a serum. This serum would cure his friend's illness. After continuously processing the serum for many hours, that serum is ready, which Dr. Morbius tested by putting it inside the rat's body. Unfortunately, the rat was killed after a while, meaning that Dr. Morbius still has to work on this medicine. After this experiment, Dr. Morbius went to see a patient who needed care, when Martin looked back and saw that the rat that had died was now alive. When Dr. Morbius found out, he was very happy because his serum made it really work. Dr. Morbius to his childhood friend Milo went to tell them that I will cure your disease in a very short time, and now Dr. Morbius went with Martin to a large ship where he would conduct his experiment. Morbius removes the serum that he made before and experiments with the bat before that, and now he wants that serum injected into his body. Martin was only following the order of Dr. Morbius, and in the next moment, the serum injects into the body of Dr. Morbius. Initially, Dr. Morbius looked completely normal, but slowly the effect of the serum began to show on his body. Martin started to be scared and now leaving the security of their body to react strange and jumping here and there. When a security guard inside comes to check, he saw that Dr. Morbius is not present on his chair. Suddenly, to see Dr. Morbius upside down like a snake. He is showing his face. Dangerous vampire looks like because Dr. Morbius has made this serum from the saliva of that bat. It was not a normal bat but a vampire bat, and now because of the wrong effect of the serum, Dr. Morbius changed into a vampire bat. It was changed and Martin was eager to see what happened to Dr. Morbius. The officers who came there to protect the laboratory, although Martin did not want to shoot the officers, because the reason they had to not injure Martin was that he was injured, and now they pushed him away, and all these things were seen by Dr. Morbius in the next moment. They were breaking the mirrors of the officers inside. Dr. Morbius was so angry that he started killing all the officers present there. When Dr. Morbius came back in his human form a while later, he was puzzled as to who had killed those officers. To find out, he started checking the security cameras, where he realized that it wasn't anyone else but he himself. Dr. Morbius also understood that something had gone wrong with the serum on his body, which had transformed Morbius into a different personality. Dr. Morbius immediately called the FBI to inform them that many people aboard a ship in the middle of the sea were injured. Within a few minutes, the FBI agents reached there. However, Dr. Morbius had already left from there, and Martin was shifted to the hospital due to severe injuries. Now Dr. Morbius, who was currently in his human form, came to the hospital. Then suddenly, his body started to change again, as he began to convert into his dangerous vampire form. Morbius then went straight to the blood donation camp and started drinking a lot of blood packets kept there, which told us that Morbius would have to keep drinking blood to stay in his human form, otherwise he would have to stay converted into his dangerous vampire form, and along with his unique powers, that Morbius was now being. Although she knew everything about Martin Morbius, she didn't want Morbius to go to jail. So, she tells the officer that she can't remember anything. Now, inside the nearby hospital, they see a nurse who was doing her work. Suddenly, the nurse felt someone was following her. When she looked back, a vampire's hand fatally attacked her. However, Dr. Morbius was sitting in another apartment with another patient, meaning this act was done by another vampire. Now, sitting there, Morbius began to sense something unusual. When he went outside to check, he found the nurse dead. All the doctors and nurses gathered to investigate this case. Dr. Morbius already had a sense that something was wrong, so he took many bottles of blood with him and started to leave from there. But just outside the entrance gate, many FBI officers had arrived who needed to interrogate Morbius. Actually, those FBI officers suspected Morbius because they knew that Morbius had called the FBI that night. Now, these officers noticed that Morbius, who used to walk with a limp before, had completely changed his behavior. Inside the hospital, seeing the last moments of that nurse, they understood that Morbius had done this act. Before the officers could catch Morbius, he started to escape in the form of a vampire. Morbius had already reached the top of a building. Invisible wires began to pull Morbius down. Because of this, the police officers arrested Morbius. Morbius had been in jail for many days. Miles had come to meet him. Miles promised Morbius that by closing this case soon, I will get you out of here. And now, here is Miles, who needed 2 sticks to walk. He left his stick there and left. Along with this, Miles was drinking continuously. After seeing all these things, Morbius immediately became suspicious. Actually, now Miles had injected serum into his body despite Morbius's refusal, due to which he had also been converted into a vampire. And what Miles was drinking repeatedly was not anything else but blood, which was helping Miles to remain human. Dr. Morbius also learned that Miles had killed the nurse present in the hospital. Therefore, Morbius suddenly comes in anger as a vampire and easily breaks the jail and leaves. Morbius had already used his power of hearing to find out Miles's location. With the speed like a flash, Morbius immediately reached near Miles. He was getting very angry at Miles because for the first time, even after refusing him, Miles had injected serum into his body. And now, Miles was killing innocent people too. Milo told Morbius, if you and I join forces, no one can defeat us, and we will rule the entire world. But Dr. Morbius didn't believe Milo because he couldn't take innocent lives like Milo. These differences sparked a fierce battle between them, not a normal fight but a vampire's fight, where both were evenly matched. As they fought, they ended up at the metro station. While Dr. Morbius was also a vampire, he didn't want to harm anyone. On the other hand, Milo was completely out of control and was not sparing anyone who came in his way. Due to the extensive destruction, police officers arrived there initially, and it seemed like Milo was surrendering with his hands up. However, he used his speed to fatally attack all the police officers. Morbius was also in critical condition. After some time, when a metro passed by, Morbius sensed many vibes around him. Therefore, he used that same metro to fly out from there. A few hours later, when FBI officers came there to investigate, they felt that all these officers were killed not by anyone else but by Dr. Morbius. They had no clue that all these things were done by Milo. Now, we found out that Martin has been discharged from the hospital. Martin saw in the newspaper that Dr. Morbius has been declared a fugitive, and the surprising thing was that Dr. Morbius was sitting behind the bus seat. Martin understood that Milo has become a vampire now, and all the blood of innocent people was not done by him but by Milo. Martin had trusted Morbius from the beginning, so she was ready to help Morbius. Together, they started building their laboratory far away from the city. Morbius knew what he had to do now. In fact, he would create an antidote that would convert Milo back into a normal human because if Milo retained the powers of vampires, he would continue to kill innocent people in this way. On the other hand, Milo was being shown in the city, roaming around and killing everyone blindfolded. When FBI agents checked the CCTV footage, they found out that these murders were not being committed by Dr. Morbius but by someone else. When they saw all the footage, they saw the doctor who had treated Morbius and Milo. They understood that it must be Milo. Therefore, the next day they went to Dr. Milo and told him that you have taken the wrong path. He caught the doctor and killed him. Meanwhile, the doctor immediately got to see the. Therefore, Dr. Morbius, in a flying rage, started approaching Milo. Morvis saw that Martin was severely injured, whereas Milo seemed quite powerful because he had drunk the blood of many people wandering in the city. Meanwhile, Morvis continued his work by drinking artificial blood, so he was weaker compared to Milo. But now, Martin, regaining some consciousness, started kissing Milo, and due to biting, a little blood went into Morvis's mouth, which increased Dr. Morvis's powers significantly. Now, Dr. Morvis was ready and left to fight with Milo. A fierce battle ensued between the two, which had been unfinished last time, but Dr. Morvis was fully prepared this time. He had also called all those bats behind him whom he had been testing in the lab. Dr. Morvis could control those bats with his mind, and with their help, he surrounded Milo completely. All the bats attacked Milo continuously, distracting Milo, and Dr. Morvis had the antidote in his hand that could cure Milo completely. Morvis injected the antidote into Milo's body, which started to return Milo to his human form. But unfortunately, due to the antidote, Milo did not recover. Instead, he lost his life. Officers had arrived there while watching it, but now, Dr. Morvis, using all his power, emerged in front of everyone. All the citizens were seeing Morvis's unique powers, and now it seems that Dr. Morvis will keep his unique powers for the welfare of the people. That means the city has found a new superhero. Meanwhile, after some time, Martin was also shown, who opened his eyes, but Martin's eyes did not look human, they looked like a vampire's. That means Martin has also become a vampire like Morvis, and in this way, our story ended here.